Going from a Luxton to a Luxton, as people keep mentioning in there. Let's see what Cameron Luxton's got what questions he will ask.
All right. So the question I've got is around the visibility restrictions for vaping products. What are you trying to achieve by imposing retail visibility restrictions?
I think that the strongest part is that when we talk to those advocating for prevention of youth, when you look at the types of youth vaping stores, the way they're set up, the colours, the way they're marketed. So similarly to the process we did with tobacco being able to be displayed and shown, it's that making sure that we aren't allowing a marketing regime that is clearly targeting children. And I think we can all name the shop that is, and particularly in poor socioeconomic areas, that the vaping shop is always the flashiest, most colourful and brightly attractive. And I think it would be naive to suggest that's not being targeted at young people. In terms of, and this is why the guidelines that can be set for regulation, retailers around how you display and how you make sure that they're not set up to attract young people will be, I think further guidelines can be developed around that. We're not suggesting that stores are blacked out and behind solid doors, but it's just the way the products are displayed, and there'll be some flexibility around that. And that was the objective, and it really is responding to a lot of the feedback around those concerned about young people vaping is the way the stores have been set up.
So the committee heard from the ministry that the justification for having a proximity regime around ECEs was to limit the exposure of children, specifically siblings of kids attending ECEs, because it was agreed that probably under 7-year-olds aren't picking up vaping. So to keep the siblings away, and the idea was to limit the exposure. So I'm just wondering, do we need both of these, a restriction on the visibility and also the restriction on a geographic restriction around ECEs? I mean,
my feeling, this is really, where the submission process and select committee report back will be of use. But when you consider that we have a lot of large shopping malls that do not have, that don't fall within those proximity restrictions, but clearly have a huge number of young people gathering and circulating and going past, I think that it does recognise that you do need both, because those stores that are outside of the proximity restrictions but still have a large number of young people gathering and shopping, and I think we can all name a major shopping mall that would fit within that criteria.
Thank you.
Great, thank you, Cam. I've just got one quick question, then I see Hamish has got his hand up as well, and it was around some of the feedback we'd heard from people in our briefing into vaping, which is around the flavours offered to youth, and whether there was any desire to limit the range of flavours available. We have heard some people suggesting that limiting it to tobacco and menthol flavour vapes would be quite good to get the kids away from coconut ice or bubbles, gum, grape, or whatever it is that they do. I'm just wondering whether any consideration was given to that.
Yeah, there is a program. I'll just check with officials, because I think there was some restrictions put in place on flavours. On the naming of flavours, yeah, there was. Yeah, it's not included.
Oh, I didn't write anything about flavours in the bill.
Naming of, but again, all of those that sort of the regime moving forward around how we control this and make sure we're not presenting a product that's attractive to young people. And I would strongly suggest that our harmful addicted smokers aren't going to pick up watermelon ice sort of flavours anyway. So I think there is a real opportunity.
Not in the bill.
A piece of work.
Okay, great.
No mention of flavours.
Interesting. I hadn't realised the officials were actually in the room, but off camera and completely embarrassed to show their faces. Look, here's the thing. I mean, would you have a peaches and cream open up next to an ECE? No, you wouldn't. Would you allow a TAB with sports betting screens and a bar outside in modern day New Zealand open up next door to an ECE? No, you wouldn't. And again, classic old, oh yeah, but shopping centres and kids loiter is what you were saying in shopping centres. So what's the big deal here? Number one, we're talking about products that by their very nature can inhibit the respiratory growth and system of young people. We know this through the Asthma and Respiratory Foundation research that they have put out and referred to often. A couple of, I think, just over a year ago, were the cases in places like the United States that indicated young people were suffering from respiratory illnesses never seen before, and vaping was a big issue. We've had evidence plenty about the attraction of flavourful products
I've got a study on that on hand. Just
Yeah, I mean,
Yep.
we could probably just within the body of the next 10 minutes, and your viewers could rustle up the research that is still independent of the tobacco industry.
Oh, yeah, I've
Because-
got peer-reviewed research here that's not funded by the tobacco industry.
No.
Yeah.
And so just on that, the funding of the tobacco industry, we now have a vaping industry. We should call it what it is, a vaping industry. Philip Morris and other tobacco companies are often the largest shareholders or investors in these companies. And again, I come back to a much earlier point where this would have been information that would have been picked up by really pretty decent and solid investigative journalism, or alternatively by an opposition who's still struggling to find their identity, having been whacked out of the last election. And by God, Labor needs to get their act together if they want to form government again. God, Sam Eefendale, wow. Who would have thought that old Sam would have been the chair of a select committee? And
I think it was a
God.
token role to try and keep him in there, but keep him away from the ministerial aspect.
Well, it's like James Meagher, isn't it? And Dan Bidwar. I mean, you won't see those two boys in a hurry unless the killing season starts at midday on November 15th. For a cabinet reshuffle, and Penny Simmons is out the door, having performed so incredibly well in her portfolio with tertiary education.
Zulu Kilo Papa India Golf is going to be landing at Wellington Airport soon.